What is shaking? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast, where we are here to help you be happy, healthy, wealthy, and get better every single day. We're continuing on with the dentistry series, and the gentleman I'm going to bring on, he's become a good friend of mine, somebody that is actually a little bit taller than me, which I can't say that often, but he is a cool dude, and definitely this can be an awesome episode. Dr. Matt VanderMolen, a highly decorated dentist, excelled in both military and civilian dental practice. Now retired, he focuses on mentoring dentists to achieve excellence through his philosophy of the principled practice. He emphasizes personal growth, teamwork, and superior patient care, aiming to inspire dentists to reach their full potential and make a positive impact. And I'm so pleased to invite somebody who's become a good friend of mine. He's actually taller than me. I think he's taller than me. Anyway, he's a good-looking dude, Dr. Matt VanderMolen. What's up, brother?
Hey, JM, how are you? Yep, I think I inch you out by 1 or 2 inches, but that's
yeah. I don't. I can't say that often, brother. But you are a tall drink of water. As I stated off air, we're going to be talking about cultivating a high performance culture in dentistry specifically, which I am passionate about this. So I love that. Yep. Maybe we'll just start there, brother. Now, you know what? Before we get there, let's get into your history a little bit. How did you get into dentistry? Why did you know this was your path and passion?
I'd like to tell you that I just wanted to help people, but because that's what you're supposed to say. But I actually grew into that. So when I was young, I knew I wanted to be a dentist when I was 13, but here's how. My dentist, my oral surgeon, and my orthodontist were all pretty cool guys. They drove nice cars and they were surrounded by beautiful women. And I thought, that's pretty good. Why wouldn't you want to be in that kind of environment? And then these same guys were like my Little League coaches. In the middle of the week, they'd be on a Wednesday afternoon, they'd be out there. And I was like, my dad was an electrical engineer, very successful at what he did, but he didn't have Wednesdays off. And so all that was appealing to me. And as I grew into things, I discovered a lot of things, but I had to learn a lot about, dealing with people. It wasn't just about all the gains that you have as a dentist, but dentistry is an incredible career. And I was fortunate to be exposed to 3 different individuals who really weren't the typical nerdy dentist types. They had a great life. They had a big personality, and they loved what they did. And they shared. As soon as they found out I wanted to be a dentist, they had me in the office. I mean, when I was 15, I was visiting their offices, and it was really a great experience. So I experienced mentorship at a very young age from the profession that I went into. So it's been great.
Well, look, man. Good-looking women, money, cars. Who's going to blame you for that? I mean, it's the perks of the job. Who's going to say no to that?
I always joke about, though. I always say, working with a bunch of beautiful women, your perception at 13 isn't quite what it turns out to be in reality when you're 25.
Well, look, man, it's all perspective. The 13-year-old perspective, slightly different than the 13. Let me ask you this, though. You didn't go directly to, maybe you did. I don't know your entire background, but you did serve in the military. Yes. Matt, what was that journey like? And how did that either really benefit your dental career? Did it set you back? I'm just curious because I didn't get a chance to ask you that personally, and thank you for your service. But how did you decide to go into the military?
Initially, again, for selfish reasons. I knew I wanted to do a residency when I was in dental school. I wanted to do a general practice residency. And I'd sort of heard from the grapevine. I was like, well, where's the best one? And it was Bethesda Naval Hospital in just outside of Washington, D.C. And I was like, okay, I'm going to apply and go there. I applied to some other ones too. And I remember going to the recruiter. I did my schooling at University of Illinois, which is in Chicago, and Great Lakes is the big Navy base just north of there. And that's where the recruiter was. And I went in there and I just naively said, I want to do a hospital residency. He's like, okay. And I said, I want to do the one at Bethesda. And he just looked at me and went, all right, well, who do you know? I go, I don't know. He goes like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, what senator do you know? I go, I don't even know who my senators are. So I don't even, So he was just shaking his head, and I did my application, and long story short, somehow I got into this program. Now I had good grades and a lot of good things behind me. It wasn't a mistake that I got in, but I got in, and it was an amazing experience because that particular program was not only the residency, but the Navy has all their postgraduate things, prosthodontics, periodontics, and they have a whole campus there. And our boss made us do our program in addition to with all those other guys too. So it was a lot of pushing. And at the end, they waited till like 2 weeks before we got out of the residency, and they go, you know what, you guys know quite a bit, and that's why we're sending you off to isolated places. And fortunately for me, an isolated place was Sicily, Italy. So I was there for 3 years, and did really well there. There was a lot to do, and I didn't have a whole lot of support, so I had to figure out a lot of things on my own. And that's where some of these things we're going to talk about today about building your people. That's where that blossomed out of that. So that was a great experience for me. I got to do, in the Navy, you're not just a dentist, you have other things. You have sort of wartime scenarios. And I was actually the chief triage officer for chemical and biological warfare, which in the Navy means these big helicopters called Sea Stallions drop a big container out of the sky, and that's a hospital that gets dropped out. And I was in charge of putting that all together and setting all the programs. So a lot of protocols and systems and things like that I gained from that. And we had a lot of fun doing that. Thank God I never really had to encounter that type of situation. And then I ended up at Pensacola Air Base in Florida, which is where the Blue Angels are. I had some exposure to them and how they run their program, which is just nothing short of amazing. So really a lot of great examples in the military, and a lot of great examples of different cultures across the military. You meet people outside. I mean, I grew up in the Midwest, so that's fairly sheltered life. So now all of a sudden you're in a world culture where Filipinos are somehow in the United States Navy, or someone from Belize is in the United States Navy through their green card. So you learn a lot of different cultures, not even within our country, but actually outside of our country.
Yeah, man, it's a good point. And actually, I'm glad we went to the military side, because often I will refer back to the military when it comes to culture, the way they build it, the way that it is so vitally important that you not only fall in line, but you truly buy in. Otherwise, you're not going to be welcome on the team long term.
Right.
And obviously, as you said, being in Italy, the different various groups. It's not just the guys you grew up with in the Midwest. Now it's people from all walks of life.
Right.
So how early did you understand that, man, I got to get this culture piece right? Because often, I don't know about you, Matt, but when I say it's like, this is the lifeblood of your business, I get the roll of the eyes and like, really, dude, this is that important? And I'm like, yeah, it truly is the lifeblood, whether you really succeed or you struggle. Am I overshooting that a little bit, brother? What's your thoughts on it?
No, and just as we were sitting here and I was describing my experience in the military, I was, when I think back, I was very naive about. I was living in, really, for the most part, really good culture. I mean, a lot of people say negative things about the military, but I have to say that it really is its own community, and people really come together and help each other. We had a situation. My wife had a severe medical emergency. We ended up in Germany, and there's no Navy in Germany. So I show up in a uniform that most people didn't even recognize, and the amount of support that we got was pretty incredible. So there's just this sort of built-in culture, and you sort of take that for granted. And so now I bought a practice in a little tiny town, 3,300 people. It's in the middle of nowhere in central Midwest, or I should say West Central Illinois. And I start up, and it's almost like I kind of forgot a lot of stuff. The military aspect about, things have to be this way, I carried that in, but really sort of this concept of building people and everything I did. And I really initially thought about people that were working for me as sort of, I call them sort of game pieces. It's like, I knew the game, they were the pieces, and, you do this, you do that. And, typical micromanager type of life. And that can work for a while, but if you want to grow and do anything significant, that's just not going to cut it.
Yeah, I'm picturing this rigid way of coming in and again, do what you say, what you're told and like fall
Right.
in line
Right.
where that is really effective when somebody has committed to, at least 4 years of their life, the like that makes sense. And you kind of are property of the United States government for
No, not
those
kind of.
years.
You're informed
Yeah.
that you are.
Versus these people choose to work for Dr. VanderMolen. They
Right.
choose like Matt can be my boss, or you know what?
Yeah.
I'm not getting treated right. He doesn't have
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, brother, and how you really started to, I'm guessing, open yourself up. I know I've had the chance to talk to you enough to know you're a pretty open book. You are definitely someone that cares about people, but I'm trying to picture you in that coming off that mindset and how you kind of decided to open yourself back up to the people that were on your team.
Yeah. I mean, and I haven't really talked a lot about it, but one thing that when I meet people, they say, well, what's your experience with dentistry? I say, dentistry to me is a game. I play it as a game. Now I just referred to a way to play it as a game that's not a good way. But if you involve other people, for instance, when I was in Sicily, we didn't have a lot of stuff. And I had two male dental assistants who were both basically coerced into going into that particular uh, way of life in the Navy with the promise that, hey, if you do this, maybe you'll be able to get into the SEALs program. So these two really good shape guys, smart, but they're dental assistants. And I was like, I got to do something to make these guys excited. And so we had certain standards. We had to have so many people in, and we had to have they call it readiness. So you have to have 80% of your population that you're taking care of. If today they have to go into combat, you have to be able to sign off and say, these guys are not going to have a dental problem for 12 months. They are not going to cause some kind of mission failure because they're writhing in pain with a toothache. And when I got to Sicily, it was in the low 50s. And it was like, okay, here it is. So we just made a game with these guys, and I trained them up. I showed them, got them to do skills that they didn't even think that they could do. And it was amazing. And, so I won medals because of that. They won medals because of that. And so then I started thinking about that, and I brought that back to this little town, Rushville, where I was at. And so we started playing games and started building people up. And when I realized that, and I bought a practice. So everybody that was in that practice, when I bought it, they all disappeared because probably mostly my fault because of how I was handling things. And they didn't like change. And you talk about that. Nobody likes change. But then when I started understanding that I need to find people who really want to get better, and most people do. I mean, have you ever met anybody, right, that says, nah, I'm good. I don't need to be any better than I am. So when you find that and discover that was a big turning point for me.
Yeah, there's a couple things I want to hit on here. So gamification, it's a huge thing, you guys. And there's so many studies on when people are happy, having fun, they're far more productive. And that makes sense when you say it out loud. But I think we lose that so often in business where it's like, no, we got to do this and this and this. And yes, needs to be done. However, you can have a good time doing it. So that's one thing I absolutely want to hit on. The other thing that you mentioned is as you started to say, okay, I recognize I'm taking over a culture, and actually trying to turn around a culture is extremely challenging
Yep.
because people are often set in their ways.
Yep.
How many of the folks when you bought that practice ended up staying on, Matt? I'm curious because there is a moment when if you take over a practice or a business where those that do buy in, I'm curious if you had that experience, how they did. Did you have somebody that ended up staying on with you long term from the previous practice?
No, I did not. They the previous dentist was burned out. He decided he wanted to be an endodontist. He wanted to specialize. So he'd been done for a year or two. He didn't show up on time to see patients. There was no really morale with that, but the staff was pretty much running everything. And so they didn't like it when all of a sudden I came in and go, you know what, we are going to start at 8:30, and matter of fact, we're going to start at 8:20, and we're going to have a little meeting before we start. So he didn't like a lot of that stuff, and I probably could have been better about how I did it. It's just I was so driven, and I just wanted things my way, and that's, people ask me, well, where do you find people that will do that? And sometimes they might be there. And I think if I took what I know now and went back, I might be able to help some of those people come along. But basically, it's pretty simple. They got to be smart. They got to be self-motivated, and they got to be nice. They got to have a good attitude. And because those are all things that I feel like I have. So if I surround myself with similar people, I'm going to enjoy that, and you're just going to do better. I get challenged a lot because I talk about, and with that practice, what I did is I started with courtesy and just saying please and thank you. And I remember I had a part-time assistant who, she had no plans of staying with me, but she probably would have if she would have stayed in as an assistant. She went on and became a hygienist, but she was shocked when I was saying please and thank you as we were just passing instruments back and forth. She's like, I've never seen that before. So just a little thing like that can make a huge, huge difference.
Yeah, I want to, you guys, if you notice, when Matt's going to hire people, he's actually hiring for attributes and skills. Of course, they need to have the skills. No, there's no question. But I'm guessing, and I won't put words in your mouth, if they didn't have smart, self-motivated, and if they couldn't be kind or nice, I guess is what you said, I'm guessing they don't belong on your team. And I don't care how good the resume is. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. I actually, I love business. I've come to really love business, and I learn a lot of stuff that I do in dentistry has been from outside of the dental world, and I like to think outside the box. And right now I am a coach. I'm a business coach for dental practices, but I'm also a business coach for a young tech firm. And it's interesting because tech, I mean, you got to have skills, right? And this young man that's starting up this business, he's got this woman, and she's got all the skills to do the things that he needs. And he starts talking about her. And as he's talking about her, I said, "Doesn't really sound like you. Her name's Joy." And I said, "Sounds like she's anything but." He goes, "Yeah, but she's number one in our area. There's no way I could find somebody better than her." And I said, "Yeah, but you're a young company. You're starting this company. And if Joy's that good, it seems like you'd want her to be with you the whole time. And yet she's already just sort of rubbing you the wrong way. Wouldn't it be better to hire a number two person that you like, is obviously smart and is motivated, and work with that person and then help lift them up to be just as good as Joy somewhere down in the future, but it'll just be so much better." And he took my advice, which I is good as a young person. He's like, "Yeah." And like the next day he told me, he goes, "Joy's gone." And I go, "What are you gonna do to replace her?" He goes, "I don't know, but I'm pretty sure I can figure it out." And within a week he had found another person. So he's so much happier. He's really excited. So it doesn't have to be hard.
This is actually, since we're talking about Navy before, the Navy SEALs actually, they rated on culture and results, high and high. Yeah. They will take somebody with high culture and middle results over somebody with high results and low culture.
Yep.
The reason being is if you don't fit in, you're going to destroy the rest of the team.
Yeah.
And that's what Matt's talking about. Like Joy, all the skills in the world, but not everybody's going to want to be around her. And she's going to absolutely ruin the culture that you're trying to bring on. And it will be the downfall. And I see that often too, Matt, where people they get so enamored but they have the skills and they're the best salesperson. And I love your piece of advice, which is, man, she's anything but Joy. You should probably move forward. Why is that so hard for people? Just because they see the production and they're like, gosh, that production, I just need it. Is that what we hold on to?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things. I mean, when we're talking about dentists are just nice people. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. We carry this baggage where, everybody hates the dentist. So we want to do anything we can to change that. And so it's being nice to a fault, and really you're not doing anybody any favors. It's being the opposite to the rest of your team. And the other thing too is when you hire somebody, I mean, you made a decision, right? And so when you look at that person, you have to admit to yourself, I made a mistake, and then you have to take action to admit you made that mistake and go forward. So I think a lot of people's egos get bruised, and it's always fear. It's a fear-based thing. What's going to happen when I tell her that she can't be here anymore? How am I going to find somebody else? I mean, there's all these things about fear, and a big change in my life is when I realized that we're in an abundant world. We're in an abundant country for sure. And there's all kinds of opportunities, all kinds of people out there that are looking to be with you. And if you're your authentic self, people are going to come in and follow you, and you're just going to have a really good time. Is it all, you know, uh, unicorns and rainbows? No. People are people, but for the most part, 80% of your existence is going to be pretty darn good, and 20% is just chaos, and that's just part of the world that we live in.
Yeah, the authentic self piece, I have to imagine you being nice. That's just, you were raised that way. Saying
Right.
please and thank you is exactly how that is authentic to you. So it would actually be odd for you to not do that, to not say to your assistant or to the hygienist or whomever, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And you're saying every time a tool is passed,
Yeah.
that's not industry standard.
Right.
But in your practice, it was. Was that the expectation that, look, man, I want to see you. I want to say thank you. I want to say please. I want to say I appreciate you. Was that the standard of the practice? And if it was, what happened if somebody doesn't adhere to that culture?
Right. So, I mean, the easiest thing, I wrote a chapter in a book just about courtesy, and it was a book about, all the successful things you could do. And all the other authors had all these, amazing, complicated type things. And here I'm writing a chapter about uh, saying please and thank you for the most part, and you're welcome, and it's my pleasure. Um, but the great thing about that is if you take basically someone who's smart, motivated, and a nice person, and you can train them to say please and thank you on with every conversation, and you just have to have buy-in to do that. And once you start doing that in our industry, you've got a patient who's right there, they notice it, and all of a sudden they're walking out of there and they're telling the receptionist, they're like, wow, the people in here are really nice. You guys are really nice. And because they don't know what else to say. And if you ask me to define nice, I can't even define it. It's just, we know what nice people are. They're nice. So you see that, and when patients start commenting about that, or they start turning to the person that says please or thank you, it gets noticed. And so then you get that buy-in, and then there's that buildup. And I know we're going to talk later about how do you do a high performance thing. Well, it begins there. And you mentioned earlier, well, how do you even unravel this? How do you even get started? Well, it starts there. And if people don't conform to that, you just have to let them go, because saying please and thank you is easy. I was talking to someone last night about kind of laughing, because in basically the retail thing, you've probably experienced, you walk in a door and someone yells out, welcome to X store, or whatever. And it's just this like random thing. They might as well say random, welcome to X store. Please don't bother me. I have to say this. Don't make a mess, and, buy something. I mean, there's nothing sincere about that. Whereas in my environment, I want it to be sincere. It's like, hey, welcome. We're glad you're here. And so that's building that. And it takes time. And it's kind of like, if you want to make yourself happy, smile, right? So it's the same thing. If you start saying please and thank you, and you're welcome, and it's my pleasure, the more you do that, the better it works out. I totally cracked up when I went to my first Chick-fil-A experience, and they were answering back, it's my pleasure. And I was like, okay, did you guys go to the Ritz-Carlton to learn this or what? But obviously the people that have Chick-fil-A, they did. And they're like, we can teach people how to say it's my pleasure instead of, hey, no problem. Has a whole different connotation. And we all know Chick-fil-A is massively successful. And it's not just because they're chicken. I mean, it's chicken. So
Well, there's expectations that are built in, and the culture is extremely clear when it comes to Chick-fil-A. That you're right. It's you don't have to say no problem. You can say it's my pleasure. These are niceties. These are courtesies, but it can be taught, as you said, just as it can, the other way. I'm curious. I have a saying, which is a lot of what I'm hearing is you're really clear when you're hiring somebody that they are nice. Now, quantifying nice, that is the challenge,
yeah, it is.
but it is a feel, right? You know, when you
Yep.
meet somebody, for the most part,
You
you
know.
can feel their energy.
Yep.
Some people are kind, some people are not.
Yeah.
Um, did you subscribe to the theory of slow to hire, quick to fire?
Oh,
I'm curious if that was something that was in your world, because it's certainly something that helped me in my path.
yeah, absolutely. And you have to recognize that. And, and the challenge for me is as my, uh, I you know, I started out in a small town and went to a bigger town, got way bigger than I ever dreamed it would be. I've been incredibly successful and blessed with what I have, and it all starts with these, um, you know, basic things. But you have to admit you made a mistake. And so as I got bigger, I wasn't hiring anymore as my managers or my leaders were hiring. And then I had to be real specific on training them. It's like, look, this person may come in smelling all like roses and you think she's the one, but pretty much in 2 weeks time, you should know. And it's, you should know in 2 weeks time, are they smart? Are they motivated? And are they nice? I mean, it shouldn't take any longer than that to know those three things. And so you have an initial impression, and some people are professional interviewers. They go around and they present all those things, and they turn out to be something else because they have other motives. But to me, it's 2 weeks, and if you're spending time with that person, you'll know. Yeah,
When you have to address a challenge, whether they're not being kind, um, not even to the point where you need to let them go yet, but this is where I find often the communication piece breaks down. You see a pattern, you see a behavior, and it needs to be addressed because it's not in alignment with being nice.
right.
How did you go about those meetings, whether it was you, your managers? What did that look like? Because I think often the things that need to be said, they don't get said in the moment, or they get hastily said in an angry way, and now they're really taken the wrong way. What did that look like for you in your practice as you continued to grow and scale? Because this is a skill set that I absolutely want to make sure our audience, they you recognize when you have those. I call them, they're crucial conversations. When
Right.
you have to have this crucial conversation, what is your process?
Right. And the thing is to ask questions and listen. Um, so, and it's important that something that I learned is to not ask a why question. Well, why did you do this? But to go, what was happening for you when you stated this, like that example, when you said this to this person, what was happening with you? And then everything starts pouring out, as opposed to like, why did you do that? Then it's this defensive thing, and it's just not going to come out about what was really going on. So I would say asking what questions and listening. And then, it's amazing when you ask a what question, because that's when people really tell you what's going on. And, even when I'm dealing with patients, is I'm telling them about a procedure. We're going to be doing this. And I won't say a whole lot of sentences before I stop and I go, what are you thinking about what I just told you? And the answer could be, it's almost 4 o'clock and I got to pick up my kids for soccer practice. So they weren't listening to anything that I said, so you just don't know. Whereas you might just assume, oh, they didn't want to do it. And, they didn't, but they've got other things in their mind. So you have to ask what questions, and amazing things will come out. And then it's just, it's like, well, what do I say next? Well, just keep asking what question. Keep asking what is what is motivating them to say whatever it is that they're saying. It used to be, and I think somebody's written a whole book on this, is the 5 whys, they call it. And you go through, and the thing is after you get to that final 5th why, you pretty much know what's going on. But to me, I don't know that works that well, because if that first why is very accusatory, it's judgmental. And so I don't know that going down that path, I mean, maybe eventually it works, and the authors of that whole system will tell you that it works, but I would say don't go that route. Just ask what questions.
Yeah, actually, it's super powerful when you're interviewing someone. I call it behavioral interviewing, right? Do you believe in hard work? Can you give me an example of what that looks like? Yeah. Rather than, and I like the way you applied that to say, why did you do this versus what was happening when you said this? Because I'm guessing now you go back to your culture, which was your culture specific to smart, self-motivated, nice, or those were the attributes that the people had on your team?
That's the attributes. I mean, those are the bare minimum. That's the foundation for everything else that we do. Yeah.
Got it. So that's barrier of entry. When it came to, so this is what I want people to understand this, because this is where I think oftentimes this is his permission to play values, as I call them. Yeah. If they're not smart, if they're not self-motivated, if they're nice, Matt doesn't care what qualities they have.
Right.
Then you have your culture, your values. What did that look like, Matt? Because again, when you say nice, people are like, well, that doesn't work in business. You got to be hard nosed. You got to be the hard ass to grow. Yeah. But clearly you did grow. Yeah. So let's talk about, here's the permission to play values. What did your other values look like so that you could really start to grow, really, to take it to that next level?
Before you even get to values, I would say that, someone much smarter than me, a mentor that I had outside of dentistry, one time just asked me, he goes, hey, what business do you think you're in? Dentistry. And he goes, wrong. And I was like, no, right. It's dentistry. He's like, wrong. And he goes, I don't know if you're doing this yet, but your business needs to be building people, period. Any business needs to be building people, period. It's a business that happens to have as its product or service, providing dental crowns, providing whatever dental service, having your teeth cleaned, whatever happens to be that. But your real business is building people. And so when I started really realizing that, along with the culture thing, that's everything else just builds around that. Your job is to focus on helping other people to raise up, and building up your culture is, it starts, like I say, it's just please and thank you. It's courtesy, but then the next thing is appreciation. And then after that, you're communicating with people in a positive way. You're encouraging them. You're supporting them. You're always positive, and then you're recognizing them. And a word that doesn't get used a lot, edification or building up people, I think that's underplayed a lot. I don't really hear that talked about a lot. You hear about praise and you hear about recognition, but not so much edification. And when you start edifying someone and building them up in front of other people, saying, hey, this person not only is really great, but you're fortunate to be associated with this person right now. This person is top dog in this particular aspect, and you're fortunate to be there. That's different than just straight praise or recognition. And I try to get that to go in dental offices, and it's not something that comes natural. I wish it would, because that's one of those things that really set our practice apart. And again, if you ask patients, well, what did you like about them? They go, oh, they're really nice. So, because they don't even know how to put it into words. Because when you've got an environment where everybody is trusting each other, everybody's working together, people are laughing about stuff together. As a customer, as a patient in our business, it feels great because you're like, wow, these people all like each other. They like me. They like what they do. I mean, that's the synchronicity within that type of situation is becomes the culture itself. And it's a culture of high performance. It's a culture of what do we do to be the best at what we do? And I don't, do you watch Formula One racing at all? Or are you familiar with it at all?
I don't. I mean, I've watched enough of it to I know that there's a hell of a team aspect to it. That's one thing
Yes.
people don't realize. But no, to answer your question, I don't watch a lot of it.
So Netflix did a thing. It's just called F1, and I would recommend that people at least watch a season of that because, like you said, it's not just about the driver. The driver is a part of that team, but it's a huge team. It's like 100 people all coming together for this race. But as an example of high performance, obviously there's a high performance car. These cars go 200 miles an hour. They're buzzing around. There's these young guys that think they can't die, I think, to be able to do that. But there's a guy, Max Verstappen, and a lot of people hate him because he's the top. He's the best driver. He drives the best car. Happens to be a Red Bull. And I like the Red Bull story as being best because if you watch the Netflix thing, the Ferrari guys, the Mercedes guys, the Renault car people, there was a quote in there. They go, "Hey, Red Bull, it's a drink," So that was their, it's like how are they really a car company? But they figured some stuff out. I mean, they used an engine from Renault, and it kept blowing up, and then Honda comes into the picture, which wasn't doing Formula One at all. And Honda's well known for their engines and the Indy cars. They bring it in, all of a sudden they have the best car. And then they have the best driver. And so there's a race in Austria. It's like the traveling circus. These guys, they pick up everything and they go from, country to country and they do this race. And there's 20 teams or 20 drivers. And so Max Verstappen, he's in Austria. He's doing a race. He's 40 seconds ahead of everybody else. He's going to win this race. And there's like 3 laps to go, and the announcers are going, Max Verstappen just announced that he wants to come in for a pit stop. And they're like, why? And they're like, he's not going to do a pit stop. And they're like, and the pit crew's putting their helmets on. And then they realize, they're like, well, he's won the race, but he hasn't had the fastest lap. So like a lot of racing, you get points. So you get points for the fastest lap. And he hadn't done that in the race. And in order to do that, he needed to come in, he needed to get a softer tire because of the particular environment there was. And everything needed to be perfect. So the announcers are incredulous. They can't believe it. He comes in, does the pit stop. The pit stop is perfect. I mean, it's under 3 seconds. I think it was under 2.7, something like that. Everything goes on. He goes around, gets the fastest lap, wins the whole race by 3 seconds. And I looked at that, and you could go, well, that was really a cocky move, but it wasn't just him. There's a guy called a team principal. He must have okayed that. And what kind of confidence do you have to have? Because, these guys come into a pit stop. There could have been all kinds of screw ups. And they knew, even though 40 seconds sounds like a lot, it takes time and nobody else is pitting. They're flying around the track as fast as they can. So he basically has to catch up and then win the race and get the fastest lap. So to me, that's high performance. That's having trust in your team. He had total trust in his team that everybody's going to do everything right. And wow, that's a lot of fun. I mean, that's exciting, isn't it? I mean, they could have said, well, we won the race, great, pop the champagne, whatever. But man, at the end, well, we didn't win the race, but we just pulled off this, pretty much something that people would think is impossible to do. We pulled it off. So that's the kind of culture I want to live in, is pretty much proving the impossible, because impossible is just an opinion, right? Until you do it. So believe it or not, I think that's in dentistry too, in any business.
Well, you said the word, man. He trusted his team, that they've done it. They've done it thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And even I imagine if something had gone wrong, here's the deal. He's not going to point fingers. No. That's how you get to the top. You win as a team and you lose as a team.
Yep.
And that is it is a great story. I have not watched all of it, but I've watched a lot of it. I want to get back to the edification piece for a second, Matt, because it surprised me when you said it doesn't come natural in a lot of the dentistry, because I find, well, at least the high performing teams I'm around, they certainly edify the doctor,
Mm-hmm.
right? The front desk, oh, you're going to be so happy with Dr. VanderMolen. He's incredible. And then the hygienist, oh, you are so lucky, blah, blah. But here's the deal. I think what you're saying is maybe it's not being reciprocal in all ways and reciprocated. And guys, if you want to explode your revenue, listen to what Matt's about to tell you, because this third party credibility piece, or edification as he called it will explode how much people trust you as a practice. They will pay you more money because they believe in you. And it all came internally. I'm not overstating this. I've seen this. Is it, when you say it, you don't see it often? Is it that it's not happening from all facets of the practice?
Right. I mean, it's the office you're going to is obviously awesome. It doesn't even happen at that level. And dentists are like, well, they just think, I'm a typical dentist. They don't get it how good I am. And it's like, well, you know, it goes both ways. You have to show how to do it. And I think that's a lot of leadership problems is as the dentist, or if you have a company, you got to be doing these things. You got to be edifying your team, and then they're going to get it. And then they're going to go, because why wouldn't they edify you after you've just built them up in front of someone? They're going, oh man, he's great. Even if they just say, wow, he actually recognizes that, we carry the weight around here. Could be something funny like that. So it just goes back to leading by example. And that's it.
I'll tell you right now, if you guys want to explode your revenue, just literally take that piece that Matt said, edify the heck out of each other. It makes people feel good. It gives them confidence. I mean, I can't even tell you how much that means. We don't have time to do the whole story, but there's a guy that went to the Ivy Leagues. He took a test. I'm going to tell the story just because this is such an example.
Yeah.
He was a C student, low C student. Goes to take the SATs and gets like a 1560. Gets into any Ivy League school he wants. Goes on to, I think it was Yale. Has a prominent business career. Multi-hundred millionaire over. 20 years later, he gets from the state of New Jersey. Oh, actually, there was like 20 group of kids or so that got incorrect scores. He got an 840. And here's the point. He said, I went to Yale, did all these incredible things because I thought I was smart.
Yeah.
That was it. It wasn't that his IQ had changed. He literally took the test. They made a mistake. His whole life changes. But I look at it the same way. If you are praising, recognizing, edifying your team, they're going to perform that way.
Yeah. Yes.
And if you're berating them and you're coming down on them, guess what? They're going to perform like that too.
Yeah.
And
on top of that too is asking people to step up. And that's been one of the things that, and even in my last years of clinical practice, is that it would continue to amaze me when basically you have a situation where you have somebody who's a superstar and they go out of the picture. They're pregnant, or they get injured, or they move away. And now you're like, oh, I don't have a superstar. So you look at sort of number two, who could be still fairly down the line in terms of skills and abilities. And you just go to that person and go, look, Sue's no longer with us. She was great. And you've been a good supporter. But I have this feeling now that you could probably step up. And as a matter of fact, I need you to step up. Could you do that for me? And of course, they're going to say yes. And they're going to be trembling a little bit. But it's incredible how much people will step up. It's almost as if that superstar has been holding them down. And that's something that I've always tried to look for. And we're always building people. And in my office, we have a whole skill levels that we define so that people aren't always just going, well, she's the best or whatever. There's like, well, here's the levels. Here's how you figure out to get to that level. And you've spoken about that people need to know that they can move up in their career. Otherwise they feel in sort of a dead zone. It happens a lot in dentistry. So asking people to step up on top of the edification is like, it's almost like a superpower, just going, hey, I need you to step up. Would you do that for me? And then of course you're going to support them because they may not know exactly what it means, but they kind of know what the person in front of them did, and you help them and you put them in a safe zone where if they make mistakes, like, okay, let's figure this out, or let's get somebody that can help you. But it almost always happens. And I was just coaching someone last week, and he was like, I'm going to lose the best assistant I ever had. And I go, well, first of all, is she a better person than she was when she started with you? And he said, yes. And I go, okay, remember what business you're in. So that's a success. You're successful in your business of building people. And he's like, yeah, you're right. And I said, here's the other deal is that I think you can find somebody else, and probably someone's already in a team, and have them step up. And he started talking about this other person. I go, all you got to do is ask her to step up and show her the way. And so he felt a lot better about that, because this person that was leaving is a dental assistant. She wants to go to hygiene school. And he goes, on the one hand, I should be happy for her. I go, absolutely, you should be happy for her. But he goes, but I want her to stay there because once she leaves, I won't have this, all this skill and ability. And I go, well, I said, the writing's on the wall. Send her off to hygiene gladly, have her come back. A hygienist that's an incredible assistant before then is gold. So make sure you welcome her back, or tell her that she's welcome, and then build up your other team. And chances are, at least in my experience, that whoever you build up is going to be just as good as her, or probably better, because you're going to be better. And as you get better, everybody just elevates with you.
Yeah, brother, it's such a good point. I mean, look, don't ever squash somebody's dreams if they say, I want to go be this. You support them, and givers gain. I've said it before. I'll say it again. When you give that, you say, look, I'm going to recommend you to whomever. Yeah, I'm for it. You will gain back tenfold. Brother, I can't believe how fast this ripped by.
Yeah.
If people want to connect with you, they're like, I want Matt as a coach, man. Like, he's telling me some pretty simple and profound things, and I mean that as a compliment. Where can they find you, Matt? How could they connect with you?
Well, the easiest way is two ways. Just you can go on it's my personal email. I'm happy to have this. It's mattvdds@gmail.com. And I'll answer your email. Also, you can go on to sunrisedentalsolutions.com. So that's Sunrise with Tony Feck, great organization. They believe a lot of things that I talk about, and I've been pretty instrumental in helping them to get that point as well. So it's a great organization. If you're somebody who's good and you're struggling to be better and best, it's perfect for you. If you've got a lot of personal problems and you're just hating on everything, it's probably not the place for you. But if you're someone who's, again, it's Sunrise is no different than when I was hiring for dentists. If you're a smart person, you're motivated, and you've got a good attitude about things, but maybe you're a little burned, or you just feel like I don't know where else to go. Sunrise Dental Solutions could be a really good opportunity for you, because dentistry is just so amazing. It's such an amazing field that you can just do so well in dentistry if you invest in yourself and invest in people that have gone before you. The sky's the limit.
Yeah, look, that's the one investment that is incalculable. The return is when you invest in yourself, it will always pay back multiple dividends. So I love that. Brother, thank you for coming on, man. I knew this was going to be a fun conversation. I didn't know we were going to get into F1, but I love the story. And man, just thank you for showing up and being the nice dude, smart, self-motivated guy that you are. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, JM. I appreciate you. You've done a lot to help me formulate some of my things. That we've known each other just a little over less than a year, I think. But when you got your book on the shelf there, that Let's Go Win, that's a great book. And your concept of upgrading and not changing is huge. And I've used a lot of those concepts now in my coaching. So thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that immensely. You guys, look, everything he said, he performed at a high level, and yet he did it being kind. He did it being motivated. These are not really complex things, and I mean that again as a great compliment. Be clear on who you're bringing onto your team, and you can continue to grow and have the successful, amazing career just like Matt did. Make sure to reach out to him. This guy is awesome. He truly is just a genuine good dude. I am so happy and grateful to have him in my circle of friends. And I just want you guys to remember, until next time, remember your mindset matters. Share this with someone you know and care about. Everybody deserves to be at their very best. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk soon.